Hello, everybody. It's story time. And this is my hotel room. Never mind the mess there and the old people pills and the video editing going on over there and whatever else. I'm in that over there. If you can see it, that is Diamond Head over there. And that is Waikiki and Honolulu over there. And next to it over there, you can't really see it, but there's some ships and that's Pearl Harbor. And that's the ocean. And I'm out towards the west end of Oahu, where my wife and I are staying, and her construction site's just up the road a bit and off the middle anyway. So we're hanging out. She's in town doing what she's doing, and I'm here at the hotel waiting for her to call me so I can go get her. Anyway, story time. Yeah, let's get to it. And I'm back. Look at that crane over there. I don't know what they're doing. It's pretty cool. Looks like baseball fields. There's lights flickering. Anyway, this story time is going to be, it's not really, I don't know if it's kind of a story. So it's a story about me and my buddy Cameron when we were kids. And he brought this up the other day by sending me, well, we always send each other videos of like muscle cars and stuff that we really dig. And I sent him a video of, it was like I took a picture of like a Facebook profile picture of, let's see if I can find it. It was, hold please, hold. And you're continuing to hold. Hold please. Continue holding, I'm looking on my phone. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so, you see those cars right there? Z16, L89, L72, 427, and 454 LX6. These are the top of the echelon here for like 68, 69, 65, and 70 for Chevelles. Now when I talk about muscle cars, this is what I'm talking about. Not a Chevelle Malibu 350, not a Nova, not a Camaro, not like a Camaro. Like I'm talking about, and I've talked about this for a while. Back when I was growing up, muscle cars were that. That was a muscle car. Not a Chevelle, SS 427, L72 Chevelle from Copo or something like that. The top of the Chevelle range with the muscle car and the big motor, that was a muscle car. It's like like for Plymouth, you have like Roadrunners, GTXs, Cudas, not the Barracuda, the Cuda, and like the Demon, not a Dart, unless it was a Hemi Dart or a GTS with a big block, you know, stuff like that. They weren't just because it was a V8 two-door American-made car does not make it a muscle car in my mind. That was just the way it was. Recently, though, I think it has to do with the Fast and the Furious, it's changed everything. The whole perspective of muscle cars is if it's got an American V8, it could be a four-door, it's a muscle car. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around that because it doesn't make sense to me. That isn't the way it was when I grew up. And so we were talking about the cars in our bucket lists. And this one right here, 68 427 L72 from Motion, Baldwin Motion would have been the car. So we talked about, do you buy one off the factory floor? If it was take the time machine back to you're 20 years old, you got a pocket full of cash, and it's 1965. Do you walk into the showroom floor and buy a Z16 Chevelle, which was a 375 horse, 396 Muncie, and a non-posi 12 bolt with 331s? And I'll tell you why that was. Every one of them, not one of them had a posi factory, because the 12 bolt was brand new. The year before, everything 64 and down had that center dropout section, which was the same rear end as Tri-5 Chevys, all the way up to 64, which came out as it was an open drive shaft for the first time in 1953 in the Corvette, and only the Corvette. In every other vehicle, it was closed driveline, including the trucks. And that, I think that driveline, I think that rear end came out in like 1936 or 37. So if you're talking about technology from like 1936 or whatever, all the way to 1954 or 64, and then they stick a 375, 396 in a 65 Chevelle, that thing, they didn't even weld the perches on, the axle perches on those rear ends, right? They were like glass. They call those rear ends glass rear ends. They just explode. So factory didn't want to do that. So they stuck a 12 bolt in, which was heavier duty, and it was pretty awesome. But they didn't have a posi yet. The next year in 66 was the first year of the factory posi, other than the lockers in the earlier style, for the 12 bolt. Because those cars were nuts with one-leggers. I'm pretty sure day two was either someone went out with a Lincoln welder and welded the posi up when they got it home, because it was a one-wheel peel for like all four gears for blocks. Because, side note, in 1965, the 396 also came out in the Corvette. Was the only year, first year the big block in the Corvette, and the only year for 396 in the Corvette, and all of them were 425 horse. And the difference between that 396 in the Z16 Chevelle in 65 and the 396 in the Corvette in 65 was nothing, not a thing. The horsepower rating, RPM range was different. One was at 5,600 RPM, and the other one was at 6,400 RPM. Interesting. So what you really had was a 427 or 425 horse solid lifter 396 in a 65 Chevelle that had a 4-speed and a one-legger. Which, I mean, if you threw a posi in it in 430s, you were going to destroy everything on the street, if you could hook it up. Big if, because that's a light car, and yeah, I mean, it would decimate everything, which I know that happened a lot. The next car on the list, L89 396, aluminum heads. Woohoo, aluminum heads. I had a buddy growing up, actually in Reno, or not in Reno, in Idaho, that had a Chevelle 300, which was a post car. And they made, I don't remember how many total they made of the aluminum-headed 396 SS post cars. I want to say it was like less than 50. And I think it was one of each color, and his, I think, was a gold car, and it was one of one, which is pretty cool. When he bought the car, the farmer wouldn't give him the 396. I might have told you about that already, a long time ago. Anyway, that was that car. That's actually a coupe. The next car, a Copo 427 Chevelle 68 also and 69, was a 427 L72 425 horse in a Chevelle. Yeah, really awesome. Copo only. Not ever badged, I don't think. And then you got the LS6, which everybody knows what that is. 450 horse, 454, and they lied about the horsepower and torque numbers on that because those motors are nasty. They did make an LS7, but it never came in a production vehicle, ever. Not one time did it come in a production vehicle. I know they say they made 2 Corvettes with LS7s, but they were special order, and like the LS7 was over-the-counter only racing stuff. That never came off the factory in anything. But you could get them really cheap if you knew the right people. But anyway, that brings it back to the dreaming. What would you do if you were like 20 years old? Would you buy this off the showroom floor, or would you go to like one of the dealers like Yenko or Baldwin Motion or something like that, or Nicky or something like that? Would you go to one of those guys and have them build you a Yenko Camaro or Yenko Chevelle or Yenko Nova or whatever? Would you, which one would you do? Because the money is going to be a lot more. For me, it'd be a 68 Baldwin Motion, I don't care which phase, 1, 2, or 3, probably 3, 4-speed, 427 Chevelle. That'd be like the top number 1 on the bucket list for me to have for a muscle car. Followed closely by a Stage 2 Buick GSX. Oh yeah. And then a Hurst Olds with like some, Dr. Olds modifications. Same year, 68. And then I'd have to have like a 68 GTO. Ram Air, 4-speed. Because you could get the 430. Interesting thing though is you could get the 430 posi in the GTO in 65. Different rear ends. Buick Olds and Pontiac have a different 8.2 10 bolt than the 8.2 10 bolt which came in the Chevelles up until 66. But the 12 bolt was, it's all this useless knowledge. Started in 65, 66 posi. on up. Those are real narrow, by the way. They're hard to find. Same with actually the 66 and 67 Nova L79, 375, 365 horse, 327 in those little Chevy 2s. Those all had 12 bolts with 4 speeds. And that's another one on the bucket list. I mean, those things scream, screamers. Anyway, that's one of the things Cameron and I were talking about. Bucket list cars and muscle cars, and we used to sit and dream about those things because we'd have like, Hot Rod Magazine yearbook, or we'd have like, I went to garage sales and yard sales and swap meets and bought magazine after magazine after magazine, boxes of them, and we would just thumb through them. I think Cameron has a lot of them still. We would just thumb through that stuff and talk about and dream about muscle cars and drag racing and BNC performance and what we were going to do because we wanted to be like Motion or something like that, which, kind of a far cry from Baldwin Motion. But anyway, those things are cool. Yeah, that'd be my car. What would you guys pick? What would you do? Anyway, story time is over. Oh, the other one. Now, there's some argument here, but I'm going to say the baddest and rarest of all muscle cars was the 69 SSAMX from American Motors. Yep. The SSAMX from American Motors. 69. I think they rate them at 340 horse or something like that. There's actually, I'll put a link in the description. There's a page of a guy that he has one. He's restored them. There's a bunch of history if you guys are interested in this particular car. They made 52 of them because NHRA rules were the manufacturer had to have 50 on the road, produced for production. So they made 52. I think all of them were drag cars. I don't know that any of them ever hit the street. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. There's probably a bunch of clones. They had cross rams and 390 cubic inches. There was 4-speed. I think they ran top loaders. I don't remember, maybe it was Chrysler A833. I don't remember what tranny was in them. I think a 9-inch was in the back, or a Dana 60 or something. I don't know. They had something in there, but they were bad. I think the record at the time or whatever was close to 11 flat or something like that. I think the 11 seconds flat or something, and 128 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour or something. I did hear a rumor that one went high 10s, but they were pretty awesome. They had stickers in the window or some sticker on the car that said something like the vehicle warranty does not apply to this vehicle. This car is equipped with a modified 390 cubic inch engine, and the standard whatever warranty terms, whatever, don't apply to this vehicle. It's sold as is. Same thing on the 68 Hemi Dart, by the way. It said this vehicle was a 426 cubic inch and modified 426 cubic inch engine and was not whatever. And those two cars are probably the ones that competed the most against each other, was the 68 Hemi Dart and the 69 AMX for the factory stuff, for the quickest, fastest stuff back then. We're talking high 10s, low 11s in, factory. Now, I mean, super stock class, we're talking slicks and some modifications, and there was tons and tons and tons of service bulletins and probably telegrams and this and that between the engine builders or the dealership or whoever was maintaining the vehicles for the guys that were supported by the factories. Are those cars really considered street cars? I would drive one on the street. Maybe not technically street cars. They're not like those Chevelles and stuff I was telling you about. And when I was talking about the upper echelon of 68, 69 and whatever of cars, I meant for GM or Chevrolet specifically. Because all the manufacturers had crazy stuff. I mean, but there's always different versions of it. You have the 426 Hemi that was on the street, and then you have the race Hemi. That is a different animal than the 426 regular Hemi. Or you have the Stage 1 Buick and the Stage 2 Buick. Different 455s than the regular GS 455. And you have the Hurst Olds or Ram Air 4 Pontiacs or Ram Air 3s or whatever. And then there's also the tuned ones that I forget what they called those things. There's Dr. Oldsmobile, and I forget who the Pontiac guy was. It'll come to me after this video, but they were like dealers that had, I mean, they did a little performance enhancing on those factory cars. And you know, back then you could go through and pick out a vehicle and order it exactly what you wanted. And if you knew what you were going to get, you got something pretty awesome. But I like a lot of the dealer modified stuff goes. So back to my original question. On your bucket list of a hot rod, like we're talking muscle cars. We do hot rods later, but muscle cars. What would yours be? I told you what mine is. What's yours? Aloha. See you later. Oh look, somebody's flying in.